This happened many years ago. I was younger and in college, and during the summers I would work at a sports stadium in the city where they had games to earn extra money. This meant I would drive back home really late at night and oftentimes get back to my parents' house after midnight. I lived about 40 minutes away from where I worked, but when it was really late, I could make it home in under 30 because of how there was usually no traffic. I was driving home one night after a late game. I made it about halfway home to where it changed from being city to much more of a country and rural area. I was the only car driving down the road with woods on both sides. As I was driving, I thought I noticed something on the road up ahead, and I slowed down. It looked like a person, but as I got closer, I could see that it was someone dressed as a full clown. They had a clown mask and a whole clown outfit, and they were even holding several balloons in their hands. I had to nearly come to a complete stop. The clown stood facing the woods, but was standing on the road in the driving lane that I was in. As I got closer, he slowly turned to face me. I was really creeped out by this. I was going maybe 5 miles per hour and went into the opposite traffic lane to pass the clown. As I did, he started to walk towards me. He was walking really slow, so I sped up my car and drove off. The farther I drove away, the more I realized just how creepy it was. The clown was standing in the road with woods on both sides, and I didn't see a car or anything parked, so I have no idea how he got there. There wasn't really any houses in the area or businesses either. I was just happy to be away from him. Shortly after that, though, I heard the noise my car would make when I needed to get more gas, and I looked to see that the tank was almost empty. I pulled into the next gas station that I saw, which was a quiet little one with only 2 pumps and nobody else was there. I paid and then filled up my car with fuel. As I got done, it was about to get back into my car. I heard a noise coming from the distance. The woods on the edge of the gas station's property ran along the side of the road, and I saw the clown peek its head out from behind a tree. It was really dark out, so it took me a minute to realize what it was at first, but when I did, I was terrified. After the clown and I seemingly made eye contact, he emerged from the woods and began running at a full sprint straight for me. I quickly got inside my car and started it, then drove away from there as fast as I could. I was scared and drove away, and luckily he couldn't catch me. I drove home, and thankfully my parents were still awake because they helped me calm down. That way I could finally get to bed. I never saw that clown again. I don't know who it was or how we got to the gas station so fast. It was very strange for someone to be dressed as a clown, wandering around the woods with no houses nearby at that time of night. A few years back, when I was 10 years old, me and 3 of my friends all went trick-or-treating together. It was a yearly thing for us to all go together, because we lived in the same neighborhood. I remember that I dressed up as a skeleton. My friends Jeremy and Lucas went as pirates and the Indians, and my friend John was a robot. We started near Jeremy's house. He lived on the edge of our neighborhood, so it was a good place to start. Then we would work our way back, block after block, to the end. We ended up finishing the neighborhood at about 8 p.m. We thought about calling it a night, but it wasn't really that late yet, so we decided to make the walk through the park nearby to another area that had more houses. These houses were more spread out and had a lot less other kids trick-or-treating. The first couple of houses gave us a large amounts of candy, and then we knew that we made a good choice to come there. Then we came up on this one house that had a very long driveway. It was a driveway surrounded by trees on the corner of the street. When we started to walk down it, we saw that it went downhill quite a bit and then turned. We figured not many kids had been to this house, and maybe they'd give us the rest of the candy or something, so we walked down the long driveway. When we reached the house, we saw a small light on the front step and a zombie decoration holding a sign. The sign said something like, "To finish the prize, follow the zombies," and the fake zombie was pointing in the direction of another zombie that was next to the house in the yard. We walked to the second one, and it was pointing towards the garage, which was behind the house. Me, Jeremy, and Lucas ran toward it to try to get all the candy first. There was another zombie pointing to behind the garage, and the final zombie outside that pointed to the door of the back of the garage. Looking back on it now, I see how sketchy it was, but we just really wanted the candy and didn't really care. The three of us opened the door to the garage and walked inside while we heard John walking behind us and laughing. When we got inside the garage, it was almost completely dark except for a small light coming from a desk chair with the zombie sitting and holding a large bowl of candy. The three of us inside the garage had big smiles on our faces when we saw how much candy was in the bowl. We all walked to the candy, but as we did, we heard the garage door slam shut behind us. We turned expecting to see John, but he wasn't there. And about 1 second later, the lights went completely out and all we saw was darkness. We were a little freaked out, but laughed it off as a prank and started taking the candy. Just then, I felt someone grab my arm. I could tell it wasn't one of my friends because of how strong the grip was and how big the hand felt. I started getting pulled away, so I shouted. My friends started asking me what was going on. We heard John trying to enter the garage, but at that point it appeared to be locked because the doorknob just kept jiggling. I started screaming help, hoping my friends would be able to help me, but they just shouted back asking where I was. At this point, whoever was there put their other hand on my other arm and was basically leading me slowly, deeper into the garage. John then started pounding on the door. After about 5 seconds of John pounding on the door, I was suddenly released from whoever was holding on to me, and I heard a grown man's voice from the other side of the garage yell at us all to get out. The door was then unlocked, and John opened it and just stood there while the rest of us dashed out as fast as we could. As a fairly young adult, I had just purchased my first home. It was a small house on the outside of town, and I hoped to do some renovations over the years and then sell it for a profit. I was also just excited to have my own space for once. The previous owner had left the house completely empty, with no furniture or personal belongings left behind. I was moving from a one-bedroom apartment, so I had barely enough things to even fill a single room. I was able to complete the whole move in half a day, though. In the end, the house still looked really empty, which I knew it would, but it was kind of weird to live in a somewhat empty house. The first night was good, but I had some trouble sleeping due to some noises the house was making. It was a pretty old place, being nearly 70 years old. It had a few renovations done, but the frame was probably just creaky and weak. That morning, I stayed in the house all day, unboxing everything and setting a few things up, like the TV and all of my kitchen appliances. By 8 p.m., I felt the relief of doing everything I needed to do for the day, and I sat back and turned on a movie. A few minutes into the movie, a large thump vibrated the ceiling, like something heavy had dropped on the floor above me. It caught me off guard, making me flinch. I had no idea of anything heavy that could have fallen. I went upstairs and took a look around, but the few things I had in the rooms were just as they had been when I set them up. It was such a loud sound, though. I even felt to vibrate the house, so I knew it happened, but I had no idea what it came from. I double-checked everywhere on the second floor, and even the first floor, but I came up short again. I went back to the movie, but the sound still lingered in my mind, and even made me wonder if there was some sort of major problem with the house that I didn't know about. Once the movie was over, I shut everything off and dragged myself to bed. When I woke up, though, I was confused. It was the middle of the night, and there was a rhythmic creaking noise coming from the hallway. I got up and went to my bedroom door, still hearing the creaking. Right when I opened the door, my heart stopped. The attic door was hanging down, swinging back and forth as if it had just been opened, and there was a ladder coming down from it. I ran past it, going downstairs to call 911. But not even halfway down the steps, I hear someone start running across the floor. I froze in place as they opened the back door and ran away. I quickly went down and locked it behind them, then called 911. While I waited for the cops to show up, I checked the rest of the house just to be safe. I climbed the old ladder up to the attic, seeing a surprising amount of things. Furniture, boxes, trash, all looking really old. When the police arrived, they mentioned that it's highly possible that a homeless person might have been living in my house when it was vacant. I called the previous landlord, and they also had no knowledge of this occurrence. They assured me that they were probably gone for good, but to just make sure everything stays locked up for a while. Whoever was living in my house hasn't come back, but there's always this terrifying feeling I get every time I come home from work. Like someone could be hiding in my house right now, without me even knowing.